Welcome to episode 187 of OTD, your daily dose of soccer history by 17 Lost Guy. This is take 2. The first take clearly didn't come out well. It sounded great after I had recorded it, but somehow the conversion garbled my words. That is why I now back each episode up with a narrative on Substack. I apologize, but I hope you get to enjoy the show now. Here we go. It is May 6, 1970. San Siro in Milan. Celtic against Feyenoord. And if you know football history mostly through the bright orange shirt of the Netherlands in 1974, or through Cruyff's Ajax winning 3 straight European Cups, this night could feel like the prologue. But it is more than that, because before Ajax conquer Europe, before total football becomes a phrase everyone thinks they understand, before the Dutch national team make the world dizzy in West Germany, there's Feyenoord. Red and white, Rotterdam, Ernst Happel, Rinus Israel, Willem van Hanegem, and Ove Kindvall. And against Celtic, one of Europe's great sides, Feyenoord become the first Dutch club to win the European Cup. And Dutch football, almost overnight, stops being a promise and becomes a power. But how did we get here? We start with Europe before 1970. The European Cup is only 15 years old, but it already has a geography of power. Real Madrid dominated the beginning so completely that the competition almost looked designed for them. 5 straight titles from 1956 to 60. Then Benfica took over with the Eusebio. Then Italy had its great decade. Milan, then Inter, then Milan again. England and Scotland had broken through too. Celtic in 1967, Manchester United in 68. This is not yet the age of one Super League owning everything, but it is also not random. The great continental powers are familiar: Spain, Portugal, Italy, and Britain. And the Netherlands? The Netherlands are coming. Ajax had already announced that something was changing. In 1969, they became the first Dutch club to reach the European Cup final. Rinus Michels was the coach. Johan Cruyff was the face of the future. But the final against Milan was brutal. Ajax lost 4-1 in Madrid. Total football, or at least the system that would become total football, had reached the stage and been taught a lesson by old European authority. So 1 year later, when Feyenoord reached the final, the story is not yet Dutch superiority. It is Dutch possibility. And Feyenoord's path is not soft. They begin by demolishing KA Reykjavik. Then they eliminate the holders, AC Milan. Then Forwards Berlin. Then Legia Warsaw. This is not a club sneaking into history by accident. Feyenoord have earned the final. Their manager is Ernst Happel, the Austrian who gives the side steel as well as intelligence. Happel is no Rinus Michels. He is not the philosopher of Amsterdam. He is sharper, colder, more pragmatic. His famous instruction is basically enough talking and play football. But under him, Feyenoord are tactically mature, compact when they need to be, technical in midfield, physically strong, and ruthless when the moment arrives. And the players matter. Rinus Israel, captain, defender, presence. Willem van Hanegem, brilliant left foot, deep intelligence, one of the great Dutch midfielders. Wim Jansen, the link player. Koen Moulijn, Feyenoord's great winger and club symbol. And Ove Kindvall, the Swedish striker, already a phenomenon in Rotterdam. This is not Ajax's story with different shirts. This is Rotterdam's own road to Europe. And then there's Celtic. Celtic are not just opponents. They are a measuring stick. 3 years earlier, in Lisbon, Jacques Celtic had beaten Inter and become the first British club to win the European Cup. The Lisbon Lions were not merely champions. They were proof that an attacking, local, and brilliantly coached side could defeat Italian defensive authority on the biggest stage. By 1970, Celtic are back, and the semi-final makes them look like giants again. They beat Leeds United in what becomes known as the Battle of Britain. Leeds are Don Revie's hard, superb, frighteningly organized English champions. Celtic win at Ellen Road, then win again at Hampden Park, in front of more than 136,000 people, still one of the most astonishing attendances in European club football history. So Celtic arrive in Milan with status. They've done this before. They've beaten Inter, they've beaten Leeds, and many assume Feyenoord are next. But finals punish assumptions. The match begins with Celtic looking for the old script. Gemmell, scorer in Lisbon, scores again in Milan. And for a few moments, it feels like Celtic history is repeating itself. The fullback with a cannon shot, the big European night, and the green and white machine. But Feyenoord do not flinch. Almost immediately, Israel heads them level. That goal changes the emotional structure of the final. Celtic no longer have a lead to manage, and Feyenoord now know they can hurt them. And as the match settles, the Dutch side grows stronger. Van Hanegem begins to impose rhythm. Feyenoord's extra control in midfield begins to matter. Celtic still have Jimmy Johnston, Bobby Lennox, and Bertie Auld and Billy McNeil, the aura of 1967, but the match is no longer moving in their preferred direction. 90 minutes pass, still 1-1, so extra time. But this is where the symbolic shift becomes physical. Celtic look increasingly exhausted, and Feyenoord keep finding legs and ankles and belief. And then comes the Kindvall moment. A long free kick, a defensive misjudgment, a striker alert to the 1 second that matters. Ove Kindvall lifts this over Williams. 2-1 Feyenoord. There's still time to play, but the future has already moved. And at the final whistle, Feyenoord are European champions, the first Dutch winners, the first Dutch club to prove that the Netherlands could not only produce ideas, but win the biggest trophy with them. So what did it mean? It kicked open the Dutch decade. Feyenoord win in 1970, Ajax win in 71, Ajax win again in 72, and Ajax win again in 73. For 4 straight seasons, the European Cup belongs to the Netherlands. That is staggering. Not because the Dutch league was huge, not because Dutch clubs had more money than Italy, Spain or England, but because Dutch football found a tactical and developmental moment before the rest of Europe had fully adjusted. Feyenoord made the breakthrough. Ajax turned it into doctrine. And the Dutch national team carried the idea into the 1974 World Cup, where Oranje did not win the tournament, but still changed how football imagined space, pressing, rotation, and identity. And it complicates the story of total football, because the lazy version is that Ajax invented it, Cruyff embodied it, and everyone else watched. But the better version is that Dutch football in the late 1960s and early 70s was a wider ecosystem. Ajax were the purest expression, yes. Michels and Cruyff gave the movement its language and mythology. But Feyenoord had already shown that Dutch football could survive the practical demands of Europe. Pressure, physicality, hostile venues, extra time, and great opponents. Feyenoord's European Cup is less romantic than Ajax's trilogy, but without Feyenoord, the Dutch takeover begins differently. And finally, this was not the start of a Feyenoord European Cup dynasty. That is the twist. As defending champions, Feyenoord went out in the first round the next season to Arad of Romania, eliminated on away goals after 2 draws. It's one of the strangest title defenses in European Cup history, from champions of Europe to gone before autumn had settled. And yet Feyenoord didn't vanish. They became world champions later in 1970 by beating Estudiantes in the Intercontinental Cup. They won the Dutch title again. In 74, they won the UEFA Cup against Tottenham Hotspur. Later still, they remained one of the great 3 pillars of Dutch club football, with Ajax and PSV. They had dry spells, of course, but they returned. The 1984 League and Cup double with Johan Cruyff in his final season as a player, the UEFA Cup in 2002, and later domestic titles that confirmed the old force still had life. Cruyff at Feyenoord, by the way, is absolutely his own OTD episode. Ajax cast him aside, so he crossed the Great Divide to Rotterdam and won the double. It's almost too perfect as football revenge. But how about Celtic? Well, for them, Milan becomes the great missed second crown. They remain powerful domestically. Jörg Steen rebuilds. The quality street gang begins to reshape the squad. Kenny Dalglish, Danny McGrain, Lou Macari, David Hay, and others. Celtic reached European Cup semi-finals again in 72 and 74, but they never returned to the European Cup final. Lisbon remains the summit. Milan becomes the fork in the road. In 67, Celtic had helped destroy the idea that Italian defensive orthodoxy was untouchable. In 70, Feyenoord helped show that the next tactical age might belong somewhere else entirely. And maybe that is the real historical weight of May 6, 1970. It's not just the first Dutch European Cup. It's the handover between eras, from Latin and British authority to Northern European movement, from the old map to the new one, from Celtic's Lisbon dream to the Dutch decade. Before we go, 3 things to take away from May 6, 1970. First, Feyenoord were not a prelude to Ajax. They were the breakthrough. They beat the holders, AC Milan on the way, then beat Celtic in the final, became the first Dutch club to conquer Europe. Second, Dutch dominance was broader than one club. Feyenoord, Ajax, later PSV, and even Twente as the European finalists, all showed that the Netherlands had become a serious exporter of tactical modernity. And third, Celtic's defeat was a hinge. They remained a great Scottish force, but 1970 was their last European Cup final, while Feyenoord's win opened the door to Ajax, Cruyff, Michels, and the Dutch football imagination that would define the decade. On this day in 1970, Feyenoord beat Celtic 2-1 after extra time at San Siro. Ove Kindvall scored the goal that made the Netherlands European champion for the first time, and Dutch football began the decade in which it would teach the rest of the world new ways to see the game. That's all for episode 187 of OTD, your daily dose of soccer history by 17 Law Guy. Tomorrow, we stay in the European Cup and go to May 7, 1986, when Stawa stole it, and Helmut Dukadam became immortal with 4 penalty saves. See you tomorrow.